Hello. Hi there. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm feeling so glad and so deeply grateful to be here sharing in this time and space with you. My name is Michelle, and today I have the intention of offering a trauma-sensitive yin yoga practice. And before maybe getting into the actual practice itself, I thought I might be able to provide a brief little background about yin yoga if you're interested in learning, and then a few little notes of awareness for the practice before kind of moving into potential shapes you might try out today. So if you're not as familiar with yin yoga, this particular type of practice offers the opportunity to maybe explore different shapes or forms, maybe in a more passive style for a duration of time. That duration of time might be anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes in each shape. So you'll see me maybe use a timer on my phone during the practice today that I'll be watching and mindful of. And that duration of time is maybe creating a space, a container for the potential opportunity of maybe growing some body awareness, maybe having the opportunity of a present moment experience in your body in some way, and having more of this passive style approach to different shapes that might target certain spots or areas in your body maybe offers this opportunity for mindful, appropriate amount of stress in certain areas to maybe allow certain benefits of maybe a lengthening or more spaciousness growing, and maybe those more connective tissues, those deeper connective tissues within your system, within your body, maybe tending to your fascia system, your ligaments, maybe tending to your joints. A variety of different benefits and different potential experiences are available through this practice. So honoring as well, everyone's experience is unique. This practice is uniquely yours. And that is also where the trauma-sensitive element comes in. So there's always choice within every single shape. You're always in charge of what you choose to do or not do with your body, whether you choose to explore some of these shapes or choose to find one that you stay in the entire time. You're always welcome to stop at any time. You can always turn off this video and maybe revisit at a different time. And you're never stuck in any shape. So while I may offer the opportunity of that duration of time element within each form, you can always stop at any time for any reason. So again, it's uniquely for you and what you might potentially notice in your body. Again, maybe creating this container of perhaps experiencing presence, maybe for a moment in some way for you. So that's a bit about the yin yoga and the trauma-sensitive side. And then a little note that I like to offer kind of at the beginning here before moving into the practices. I do usually end the practice with a final conclusion of well wishes for you, and we'll pretty much end the video there. So a little note at the beginning here is if this content ends up connecting with you in any way at all, and you feel called to interact with the content, whether that might be commenting, liking, subscribing, maybe sharing this video or practice with someone in your community you feel it might connect with, any of that is deeply, deeply appreciated. Those are some ways where this content could maybe expand to offering wider access to this trauma-sensitive content, and if you choose to. So thank you so much for considering, and thank you for listening. For this particular practice, there's no props or anything needed. You might choose that you'd like to have something available to maybe add into any of your shapes. I have a blanket and a small kind of towel here that I might choose to use, and I'll kind of cue through different options if you would want to add them in any way. Totally up to you, your preference. So if you'd like to receive some time to maybe gather anything you might like to have for your practice, maybe bringing that to your space, And then, whenever you might feel ready to, you might begin to orient yourself in your space, wherever you might be, perhaps maybe beginning to arrive here in this moment, in your body, arriving in your own time and in your own way. Maybe for you, arriving in this moment looks like adding some movement to your body. You might be adding some swaying or rocking, or maybe there's a certain movement that you might notice you'd like to try out. Maybe for you, arriving in this moment is finding a particular shape to settle in, whether you're choosing any type of shape, whether you're standing, maybe you're seated on the earth or on a support. Maybe you're choosing to lie on your back. Perhaps an invitation to begin by arriving in any way that might interest you here today. Maybe that's movement. Maybe that's a shape and stillness, or maybe you're not too sure where you'd like to begin, and that's completely normal too. You might try something out and then maybe notice perhaps felt sensation somewhere in your body. Maybe that becomes information that could guide your choices. Whether you choose to stay in an option or whether you choose to try something different and change your mind. And then whenever you might feel ready to, as you might begin to arrive here in your own time and in your own way, you might be interested in perhaps starting with an initial yin shape with a potential forward fold option. So if you're interested in maybe exploring a forward fold, you might begin by finding the option of a seat somewhere in your space, wherever you are. And you might begin by extending your legs long in front of you. Perhaps you add a bit of movement. Maybe you add some movement to your ankles, rolling your ankles or wiggling your toes. You might keep a soft bend in your knees, or maybe you'd even like support under your knees with maybe a pillow. You might add a rolled blanket, or you might leave your legs where they are. And then as you might feel ready to, you could begin to add roundness to your spine as you might begin to fold forward any amount. Maybe you invite your shoulders to soften in some way as you might kind of hinge at your hips, perhaps starting to fold forward. You might allow your arms to land in any position, whether they might be resting at your sides or maybe even resting on top of your legs as an option. You might allow your toes and your ankles and feet to kind of fall in any direction as you might allow them to potentially relax and let go of any contraction. Maybe you choose to tuck your chin inward. Maybe drawing your gaze to a softened position. You might even choose to close your eyes if you'd like to explore that option. Honoring you can always change your mind at any time for any reason. Maybe you like to add in additional support. Perhaps you are interested in adding a pillow or something stacked, maybe even on top of your legs. You might even choose to stack your fists on top of a support and allow your forehead to maybe find your stacked hands if you'd like a support for your forehead. Maybe exploring an option of a forward fold as a first yin shape here. You might be interested in noticing any potential felt sensation, maybe somewhere in your body. Maybe there isn't much to notice, and that's completely normal too. Maybe exploring this first yin shape of a forward fold, maybe for a few moments here, honoring you can always come out at any time for any reason, as you might feel this form complete for you. And maybe as you begin to feel complete with this shape, honoring you could always stay longer if you'd like to as well. But as you might feel interested in maybe changing or moving into something different, you might begin to slowly begin to bring your spine up to your center, maybe rolling up. You might drop your shoulders down away from your ears, maybe even planting your hands behind you. Perhaps moving into this in-between time between longer yin shapes called the rebound. And a rebound might be movement or stillness, but depending on what you feel called to in your body in the moment. But it's this space in between longer yin shapes where you might have an opportunity for that longer shape to really integrate here in your system. So maybe for you, after that first fold, you might plant your hands behind you. Maybe you lift your heart. You might even slightly lift your chin. Maybe finding stillness in some way. You might have your legs long, or maybe you give your legs some movement with a shake. You could even bring your feet together, maybe move your feet side to side. Or if you might be interested in another movement option for your rebound after that first shape, you might explore some slower windshield wiper movements by maybe placing your feet on the earth, maybe bending your knees, and you might allow your legs to fall to one side. Maybe for a moment or more, you might choose to add a twist for your neck by maybe turning your gaze to look away from your legs. You might keep your head at center, and maybe you swish and move your legs over to your next side as you feel ready to, or if you're interested. So maybe for this time of your rebound, this integration time after your first shape, your first longer yin shape, you might be in stillness, maybe with your legs long, your hands planted and your heart lifted in some way, or maybe you're adding some movement for your legs, maybe allowing them to swish from side to side. Maybe another moment or two if you'd like. And you might discover somewhere you'd like to stay. Maybe you'd like to explore a bit of all those different options. Or if you're interested in perhaps moving into another yin shape offering, maybe with the opportunity of adding kind of a side stretch and perhaps some arm engagement too, you might begin to arrive in any seated shape that you'd like to here. So arriving and seated in your own time and in your own way, arriving at your center here. And then when you're ready to, you might extend one of your legs long out to the side, any amount, as you might invite your opposite foot in towards you. So as you arrive here, if you'd like to have any other support here for this, maybe you have a blanket, a folded blanket or pillow available. As we might move into this shape, I might cue a rolled towel for more of a neck pillow offering. But first, if you're interested in maybe moving into some arm engagement here before moving into the option of a side bend, you might begin by extending your arm that's on the same side as your extended leg in front of you, maybe with your palm facing up. Maybe you choose to drop your shoulders, and then your opposite hand might start to guide your fingers of your extended arm downward any amount. If you're choosing to try this, maybe you notice sensations somewhere in your wrist, your forearm or bicep, or maybe you notice this somewhere else in your body, or maybe not at all. All options, all experiences are normal and unique to you. Maybe allowing any judgments or criticisms to soften, and maybe inviting in some curiosity to notice what you could notice if you're interested. And you might explore this for another moment or more, however long you'd like. Or if you're interested in getting a counter kind of stress or stretch for this, you might release your hand and maybe allowing the back of your hand, of your extended arm, to now maybe press into the side of your body any amount. Your elbow may be bending out to the side as you might press the back of your hand into your side. Be getting a different kind of sensation around your wrist or arm or maybe somewhere else. You might invite your shoulders to drop. Maybe you choose to lengthen your spine. And you might discover somewhere you'd like to stay here. Or if you're interested in changing this up at all, you could bring your opposite hand towards your bent elbow and maybe you softly guide your elbow forward in some way. Could be a tiny movement, hardly noticeable. However much you'd like to move your elbow forward if you're interested in trying that. And again, you might discover you'd like to stay here, or if you're interested in adding an option for your head and neck, you might choose to tilt your head away from your bent elbow. And maybe away from your extended leg. So maybe dropping or tilting your head to the side. You might even add movement for your head and neck instead. Maybe adding in any free movement there. Maybe for another moment or two if you're interested in trying this out. Honoring, you could always choose something different at any time. And as you might feel complete, you could maybe release your arms. You might add some movement to your hand, maybe shaking both of your hands out, or maybe adding some movement for your wrists in some way. And then as you might feel ready to, if you're interested in moving into a potential next yin shape with a side bend, if you're interested in adding some support or anything on top of your leg, you could add a folded blanket or pillow on top of your extended leg, or you could choose to not use anything at all. And then when you're ready to, you might begin to bring your elbow to the top of your leg or maybe support that you have there. And then you might allow your head to rest in your hand. From here, you might choose to stay in this side bend with your opposite arm maybe along your side or behind you. Or you might choose to reach and extend your opposite arm overhead any amount. Maybe you begin to reach your top arm overhead. You might even invite your top shoulder to roll open. Or maybe in time you discover that having your top arm overhead doesn't feel interesting to you, or maybe there's fatigue that might set in. And you might choose to instead change your mind and maybe bring your top arm along your side or behind your back. And then another option that you might explore could be, if you'd like to maybe try adding in a rolled towel, kind of as a neck pillow offering. You might roll up a small towel, or maybe you have a neck pillow or something you'd like to use, and you might bring that support maybe between your ear and your shoulder, offering support there for maybe your head to be supported as you add this potential lean to the side. And that might make your hand available that was previously supporting your head, maybe offering them the opportunity to support your arm that's overhead, maybe a support for your wrist or your hand, almost like a kickstand. And honoring that you might change your mind, you might choose something different. Perhaps you're interested in maybe even noticing your breath. And if you are interested in noticing your breath, maybe you first recognize that you are breathing here. Perhaps as you breathe naturally, you might notice felt sensation somewhere in your body. Or maybe there isn't much to notice as you breathe, and that's all normal too. If there's a certain area in your body that you might notice your breath more as you might explore this shape. Or you might not be interested in tuning into your breath at all, and that's all normal too. Maybe exploring this side bend option on your first side for maybe a few more moments here if you'd like. Be noticing if there's any muscles that might be contracting, and you might invite those muscles to soften in some way. And again, you might discover that you'd like to stay longer. So you might choose to stay where you are, or if you're interested in kind of completing this shape and moving into a rebound here before the next side, you could start to bring your torso slowly up towards your center, arriving back at your center when you're ready to. And maybe you keep your legs in the same position that you have them, and you might offer your upper body kind of a twist away from your extended leg. So maybe you turn away from your extended leg, maybe bringing one hand behind you, your opposite arm crossing your body in some way, as you might draw your shoulders down from your ears if you'd like to create more space there. Maybe you choose to lengthen through your spine, through the crown of your head. You might allow your gaze to rest somewhere, or you might be interested in adding movement for your head, looking side to side. You might even choose to tilt your head side to side. Maybe giving this in-between time an opportunity for your whole system to integrate that longer yin form that you might have tried with your side bend. Again, you might discover somewhere you'd like to stay here, or as you might feel complete, you might unwind, coming back to your center. If you'd like to try that shape out on your second side, maybe you begin to kind of orient yourself towards that starting position. Maybe on the way there, you extend your legs in front of you, maybe getting some movement for your legs or for your feet or your toes. And then you might choose to extend your next leg to the side any amount as you draw your opposite foot in towards you. You might lift your sit bones up and kind of make any adjustments to your body you feel called to. As you might arrive in this starting position, you might have different props available that you might like to use. Maybe you have your folded blanket, maybe your rolled towel becomes available and close to you if you're choosing to use that. And then when you're ready to, if you are interested in trying the option of adding some arm engagement or stretching, you could this time maybe extend your arm in front of you. That's maybe on the same side as your extended leg. Maybe extending your arm in front of you with your palm facing up. And then your opposite hand might start to draw your fingertips downward, any amount there. Maybe you allow your shoulders to drop as you might lengthen through your spine. Maybe you begin to soften your face in some way. Perhaps noticing sensation somewhere in your arm or your wrist, or maybe somewhere else. Or maybe there isn't much to notice at all. And then you might discover that you'd like to stay here, or if you're interested in trying something different, you might release that, maybe bringing the back of your hand that you might have just been working on and pressing the back of your hand into your side any amount. Your elbow may be bending out to the side there. Maybe allow your shoulders to drop here. And then you might discover you'd like to stay in this position or in a different position. Or if you're interested in adding something different, your opposite hand might begin to reach towards your bent elbow, maybe offering a light touch there, maybe starting to invite your elbow forward any amount as you might keep your shoulders kind of square towards the front of your space. That could be a tiny micro movement, or really any amount you'd like to explore with movement. And maybe you discover you'd like to stay here, or if you're interested in adding in an option for your head and neck, you might tilt your head away from your bent elbow. Or maybe you choose to tuck your chin towards your chest or towards your shoulder. Or maybe you're looking at some movement for your head and neck. Honoring that you might choose something completely different altogether. You're in charge of what you choose to do or not do. This is your practice. And then maybe as you might feel complete with this potential arm engagement offering, you might release in your own time, in your own way. Maybe you add some movement to your wrists or your fingers. And then when you're ready to, if you'd like to try out your side bend on your second side, then as you have your leg extended, you could maybe add in, if you wanted to add in a pillow or a folded blanket on top of your leg, that's an option. You might choose not to use anything at all, and that's all valid, and whatever you choose. When you're ready to, you might bring your elbow that's on the same side as your extended leg, maybe to the top of your thigh, or maybe on a support that you chose to use. You might let your head rest in your hand, adding a bend over your extended leg any amount. And you might keep your opposite arm along your side or maybe behind you. Or if you'd like to explore reaching your opposite arm here up and overhead, you might extend your arm overhead any amount. You might invite your top shoulder to roll open, maybe even imagining you might be leaning slightly against a wall behind you. And again, at any time, if your top arm might feel fatigued or it's not supportive for you to be in that position overhead, you could always change your mind and bring your arm along your side or behind you. And then if you would like to try in the option of adding in maybe support with a neck pillow, or maybe you add in a rolled small towel, kind of making your own neck pillow, you might bring that between your ear and your shoulder as a support for your head. And then that might make your hand that was supporting your head available to perhaps become more like a kickstand, supporting your wrist or your hand that could be overhead. And you might discover that one side of your body in this shape feels very different than your first side. And that's completely normal too. Maybe it's an invitation to perhaps let go of any expectation or judgment that could creep in. Maybe you invite in some compassionate curiosity if that feels available or accessible to tune into. Maybe exploring what you could notice somewhere in your body, or maybe that doesn't interest you at all. You're more interested in noticing the structure of the shape, that might look like. Maybe leaving feeling out of it, and that's all normal. This is your practice, choosing what's most interesting to you every moment. Maybe inviting the opportunity to soften somewhere in your body in some way. Maybe for another moment or two. And then as you feel complete, you might begin to move your torso back towards your center. Maybe starting to come out of this shape when you feel ready. Arriving back at your center in your own time, in your own way. You might move into that twist option for a rebound. So you could leave your legs maybe in the same position, and maybe you start to turn and twist away from your extended leg, perhaps bringing one hand behind you as your opposite arm might cross your body. Maybe you invite your shoulders to drop down, You might choose to lengthen through your spine. Maybe your gaze looks in a certain direction, or you might add movement for your head and neck by moving your head side to side, looking over your one shoulder and then the next shoulder. Maybe giving this in between time some space for your body, your systems to integrate that longer shape you might have tried out. Another moment or two, and then as you might feel complete here, you could begin to unwind when you're ready, coming back towards your center, maybe allowing your shoulders to drop. You might move anything out of your way, and maybe you draw your legs together in front of you. You might add some movement for your legs, or adding some movement for your ankles and your feet, your toes. Maybe you choose to arrive into a seated shape. And then if you're interested in maybe adding some movement for your torso in some way, perhaps before moving into a final yin shape offering, you might arrive in seated whenever you're ready to, any type of seated shape. And maybe begin to add some movement for your spine. And one of those options could be to maybe bring your heart forward as you might slightly lift your gaze, adding an arched spine shape. Or maybe you choose to round your spine, maybe rounding your spine, tucking your chin. You might lean back any amount. So maybe you start in one of those two shapes, maybe in an arched spine or rounded spine, or maybe you're interested in moving between them, moving back and forth between arching and rounding your spine. Maybe adding some movement, or maybe choosing stillness. That's always your choice to make. Maybe you explore a bit of both. Or maybe you're interested in something different. Maybe you're interested in more circular movements for your torso. So you might even explore maybe letting your hands rest somewhere softly, as you might add some circular movements to your torso in any way. Allowing your circles to be any size. Moving maybe in both directions if you'd like, or maybe there's a certain spot that you'd like to add a little swaying or rocking. Maybe you know a different way you'd like to move your body in this moment from a seated shape. So freedom is always to explore what might feel most interesting to you. And then if you're interested in perhaps ending with a final yin shape before the opportunity of maybe rest for some moments, you might begin to move into a position, perhaps lying on your back. This final yin shape offering the option of maybe a supine shape on your back. So if you're interested in trying that out, you might begin to move in your own time, in your own way, maybe allowing your spine to recline down onto the earth beneath you. And then as you arrive, you might arrive into a full body stretch, maybe reaching your fingertips away from your toes. Maybe add some movement for your wrists and your fingers. Maybe some movement for your ankles. You might even choose to bring your knees in towards your chest any amount, maybe even adding some movement side to side, maybe some circular movements. And then if you're interested in this final yin shape offering, there's two different options that you might choose here. So one of them could be to maybe plant your feet on the earth with your knees bent. Maybe you roll your shoulders underneath you. And then you might add some space between your feet, maybe heel toeing your feet out to the sides of your space, maybe creating more space between your feet. And then you might allow your knees to fall in towards each other. Maybe this is a shape or position that you'd like to stay in for this final yin shape offering. Or if you might be interested in exploring the option of an inversion by extending your legs towards the sky, You could begin to extend your feet towards the sky any amount. Maybe keeping a soft bend in your knees, maybe letting your feet be relaxed and heavy. You might relax your toes. Your arms might rest at your sides. Or maybe you'd like to hold on to the backs of your legs. Perhaps allowing energy to flow down your legs, really kind of grounding your low back into the earth beneath you. So either option, of course, you might know a different shape that you'd like to explore instead, and that's completely up to you to explore and decide. You might even choose to explore a bit of both with your feet planted on the earth or with your feet extended. Maybe you're interested in tuning into what you might notice here, or maybe not. You might even be interested in noticing your breath in some way. Maybe you're interested in tuning it out. Maybe exploring this final yin shape here for a few more moments if you'd like. Honoring you can always come out at any time for any reason. Maybe as you might feel complete, you might begin to hug your knees in towards your chest as you might move out of whichever shape you were in. Maybe allowing your knees to draw in towards you. You might add movement by rocking side to side, or maybe even tracing some circles on the sky with your knees as a movement offering. Or if you're interested in stillness for your rebound, you might explore creating a letter X with your body. So maybe you create a letter X shape as an option. Or another movement option could be to move your legs in that kind of swishing motion by maybe planting your feet on the earth with your knees bent towards the sky. You might allow your legs to fall to one side. Maybe your gaze looks the opposite way from your legs or stays at center. And then as you feel ready, you might switch your legs over to your next side, maybe alternating side to side for some movement for your hips, your low back, your legs there. Maybe you're choosing stillness. Maybe you're choosing movement in some way. And maybe before heading into kind of a final shape or offering of rest, somewhere where you might like to land for maybe a few moments of the opportunity to explore rest in some way. Maybe you explore any other final movements or shapes that you might be calling to try for your practice today. You might choose to revisit a shape that you might have tried earlier in your practice, or maybe you choose something completely new and different. Perhaps allowing yourself some space to maybe, if you're interested, tuning back in, maybe noticing what you might notice, seeing if there's any callings coming from your body that you might like to try. And then at any time you might feel complete and would like to maybe settle into a final shape of your choice, to maybe experiment with rest in some way for you. You might begin to arrive there in your own time and in your own way. Maybe beginning to invite yourself back into this moment, arriving in any way that interests you. Maybe you tune into your senses and what you might feel on your skin. Maybe different sounds that surround you. Maybe even tune in or noticing the support that's holding you here. Maybe you're interested in noticing your breath. Maybe there's felt sensation somewhere in your body as you breathe, or maybe there's not much to notice. Maybe settling, if you'd like to, into any shape of your choice for maybe a few moments. Perhaps exploring potential space you might have created for yourself. Maybe a moment of presence, of awareness in your body, even if for a moment or less. And then as you might explore, maybe grow curiosity about your potential experience here, you might even choose to reflect on anything that might have felt useful or interesting to you from your practice today. Maybe welcoming yourself to take that along with you, and maybe leaving the rest of it behind. Maybe creating or allowing in some space for gratitude for yourself, honoring the choice that you made to carve out this time for you today. This time to maybe explore this art of noticing what it's like to be you, right here in your body, in this moment, even if for a moment or less. And as you might begin to arrive again back in this moment, arriving in any way that interests you, maybe orienting your attention with intention back into your body and the space you occupy. Maybe exploring your senses or your surroundings. And as you arrive back here, I'd like to just extend my deep gratitude for you, for sharing in this time and space with me. And although we each are experiencing, our own unique practice and experience, we're still here together in community. And that deeply impacts me. And I am so full of joy and gratitude for being here with you. Thank you again. And I am always wishing you well.